Some mysteries endure not because evidence is lacking, but because the evidence itself defies comprehension. High in the death zone of Mount Everest, where oxygen starves the mind and reality blurs with hallucination, two men vanished into legend. What searchers found decades later would transform their disappearance from mountaineering tragedy into something far more disturbing. Before diving in, don't forget to subscribe to our channel for regular updates. It was June 8th, 1924, just after 12:30 in the afternoon on the northeast ridge of Mount Everest. The mountain rose 29,032 feet above sea level, its summit shrouded in clouds that seemed to pulse with unnatural energy. Two British climbers, George Mallory and Andrew Irvine, had been spotted through a telescope by their teammate Noel Odell, moving steadily toward the peak's final pyramid. Mallory, 37 years old and a veteran of two previous Everest expeditions, led the assault. His climbing partner, 22-year-old Andrew Irvine, possessed less experience but exceptional skill with the primitive oxygen apparatus that might mean the difference between success and death. Both men carried cameras, scientific instruments, and supplies for what they believed would be their triumphant descent. That sighting at 12:50 would be the last confirmed observation of either man alive. The expedition had begun with peculiar omens that should have warned of the horrors to come. Local Tibetan guides spoke in hushed tones of recent disturbances on the mountain's upper reaches. They described strange lights moving against the wind, geometric patterns appearing in the snow overnight, and the sound of mechanical grinding echoing from the summit during windless nights. Base camp personnel had documented these accounts as cultural superstition, but their own experiences proved equally unsettling. Equipment stored in sealed containers showed signs of tampering each morning. Photographic plates developed with inexplicable double exposures showing the familiar landscape overlaid with images of crumbling stone structures that existed nowhere on the mountain. The climbing route itself presented anomalies that defied the expedition's detailed reconnaissance. Camps established at predetermined coordinates were found shifted by hundreds of yards, their contents arranged in precise geometric patterns. Fixed ropes showed where patterns inconsistent with normal climbing stress, as if something had systematically tested each anchor point. Weather conditions on June 8th had been ideal for a summit attempt. Wind speeds registered minimal, visibility remained clear, and the temperature, while brutal, stayed within survivable parameters. Radio contact with the summit team had been established at 11:30 that morning, with Mallory reporting their position as on schedule and both climbers in good physical condition. The last transmission, received at 12:15, contained only Irvine's voice stating coordinates that placed them impossibly close to the summit. The message ended abruptly with sounds that expedition members later described as resembling stone grinding against metal. Search efforts began immediately when the climbers failed to return to their high camp. Odell ascended to 26,000 feet, following the route the pair had taken toward the summit pyramid. What he discovered challenged every assumption about their disappearance. The climbing route showed clear evidence of passage, but the footprints told a disturbing story. Two sets of tracks ascended normally until approximately 27,000 feet, where they were joined by a third set of impressions. These additional marks measured nearly 18 inches in length, with a stride pattern suggesting a bipedal creature of enormous size. More troubling was the behavior of the original tracks above this point. Mallory and Irvine's footprints began to deviate from the logical climbing route, following a path that led toward impossible terrain. The impressions showed signs of hesitation, circling patterns, and sudden directional changes that suggested confusion or external influence. Odell located items of equipment scattered along this aberrant route. An oxygen cylinder, still partially full, lay abandoned beside a coil of rope that had been cut with surgical precision. The cuts showed no signs of fraying or stress failure, as if severed by an instrument of extraordinary sharpness. A more extensive search revealed Mallory's snow goggles wedged into a crack in the rock face, 20 feet above the established route. The positioning suggested they had been placed there deliberately, as if marking a specific location. Scratched into the rock nearby were symbols that resembled no known alphabet, arranged in patterns that hurt to examine directly. The most disturbing discovery came from Irvine's personal effects. His wristwatch, found stopped at 2:47, contained a photographic negative wedged behind its crystal face. When developed, the image showed the summit of Everest from an impossible angle, as if photographed from a position suspended in mid-air above the peak. The negative revealed details that contradicted every known survey of the mountain's summit. Ancient stone structures, weathered beyond recognition, occupied the highest point. Geometric channels carved into the rock formed patterns that seemed to shift when viewed under different lighting conditions. Most unsettling were the dark openings visible in the summit pyramid itself, suggesting hollow spaces within what should have been solid rock. Weather conditions deteriorated rapidly, forcing the search team to abandon their efforts. But the mountain itself seemed to resist their departure. Compass readings fluctuated wildly, pointing toward the summit regardless of actual magnetic north. Barometric pressure readings showed impossible variations, as if the atmosphere itself had become unstable. The expedition's photographer, attempting to document the search efforts, found his equipment malfunctioning in ways that defied mechanical explanation. Camera shutters fired spontaneously, capturing images of empty landscape that, when developed, showed additional figures standing among the searchers. These phantom forms appeared human in general outline, but possessed proportions that suggested something fundamentally different. Official reports filed with the Royal Geographical Society omitted these disturbing details, focusing instead on weather conditions and equipment failure as explanations for the disappearance. The expedition's complete photographic record remained classified, with surviving members bound by agreements that prevented public discussion of their full experiences. Decades passed before technology and determination combined to renew the search for Mallory and Irvine. In 1999, an American expedition located George Mallory's body at 27,000 feet, naturally mummified by the extreme condition. The discovery should have resolved the mystery of their fate, but instead deepened the puzzle beyond comprehension. Mallory's remains showed injuries consistent with a fall, but the positioning of the body suggested he had been deliberately arranged post-mortem. His arms were folded across his chest, and his head was oriented toward the summit with geometric precision. Personal effects that should have been scattered by decades of wind and weather were found neatly organized around the body in patterns that echoed the symbols carved into the rock face. The most significant discovery was the absence of the camera Mallory was known to carry. Despite exhaustive searching of the immediate area, no photographic equipment was recovered. However, searchers did find a metal cylinder buried beneath the body, containing documents written in Mallory's hand that recorded observations impossible to reconcile with known facts. The writings described reaching the summit and finding evidence of previous human presence in the form of constructed shelters and carved inscriptions. Mallory's notes indicated the structures showed signs of recent occupation, despite being situated in one of the most hostile environments on Earth. His sketches depicted architectural details that belonged to no known civilization. More disturbing were Mallory's final entries, which documented encounters with entities he described as the architects of the heights. These beings, according to his account, possessed knowledge of passages through the mountain that bypassed normal climbing routes. They offered guidance to the summit through methods that violated basic principles of physics and geography. The documents concluded with coordinates that placed Andrew Irvine's position within the summit pyramid itself, inside the hollow spaces suggested by the mysterious photograph. Mallory's final words indicated his intention to retrieve his climbing partner through means that the architects had revealed to him. Modern expeditions equipped with ground-penetrating radar have confirmed the existence of void spaces within Everest's summit structure. These cavities form a network of chambers and passages that extends deep into the mountain's core. Thermal imaging reveals temperature variations that suggest artificial heating sources operating within these spaces. Attempts to explore these openings have met with consistent failure. Equipment lowered into the cavities stops functioning at depths that should not affect modern electronics. Radio communication becomes impossible beyond the entrance points, and recovery lines show signs of deliberate severance rather than mechanical failure. The few climbers who have approached these openings report experiences that challenge rational explanation. Sounds of machinery operating at impossible altitudes echo from within the chambers. Lights move through the passages in organized patterns that suggest intelligence and purpose. Most disturbing are the voices, speaking in languages that seem familiar yet remain incomprehensible. Andrew Irvine's body has never been recovered, despite extensive searching of every accessible area on the mountain. His absence from the location where logic suggests he should have fallen implies either that he survived the initial incident that killed Mallory, or that his remains were removed by forces unknown. Recent analysis of atmospheric samples collected near the summit reveals chemical compositions that should not exist at such altitudes. Trace elements typically found only in deep oceanic trenches appear in concentrations that suggest their source lies within the mountain itself. These findings support theories that Everest's internal structure connects to systems far below the surface. The mystery deepened further when digital enhancement of historical photographs revealed details invisible to previous analysis. Images taken during the original 1924 expedition show shadows on the summit that correspond to structures not visible in normal light. These shadows appear in multiple photographs taken from different angles, confirming their physical reality. Most recently, satellite imagery has detected regular geometric patterns in the snow formation around Everest's summit. These configurations appear overnight and persist despite wind conditions that should disperse them within hours. The patterns match symbols found carved into rock faces throughout the region, suggesting a communication system operating on a scale that encompasses the entire mountain. The question of whether Mallory and Irvine reached the summit before their disappearance remains officially unanswered. However, evidence suggests they encountered something on the upper reaches of Everest that transformed their climbing expedition into contact with intelligences that have claimed the mountain's heights for purposes beyond human understanding. Investigation into their fate continues, but access to crucial evidence remains restricted by international agreements that classify much of the relevant documentation. The full truth of what happened to George Mallory and Andrew Irvine may be buried as deeply as the secrets that lie within the summit pyramid itself. What do you think really happened to Andrew Irvine in those final moments before he vanished into the summit pyramid? Subscribe to explore more cases where the mountains themselves seem to harbor secrets that challenge everything we thought we knew about our world.